All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started with our afternoon session with Dwight Miller and Corey Parr. So, guys, take it away.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing? Good. What's that? Got lunch. Everything's good. Texas lunch in Ohio, so that looked good. So, Dwight.
Good to see y'all. So, look forward to this opportunity. I just want to say that, I just really appreciate what I see in this room. I want you guys to know that. From the safety aspect, it's super important that you have people who care. And we're going to talk about the coins, the medallions that are in front there where you guys are. But I want to start out with just if you could go ahead and pull that up there. What do you see there? I just want you guys to think about what you guys are looking there in that picture.
It looks like a carpenter's pencil.
Well, it's not really. No eraser. Yeah. It's rough and tough. It's a lineman's pencil because climbed a lot of poles, had some tough nights, but it's because there's no eraser. We experienced that December 23rd. It was to hear about December 23rd again. It just kind of, a shrill just went through. When Blake Rogers, when he breathed his last breath on that day, there's no eraser. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. Corey, what do you think?
No, you're right. You're right, Dwight. And when you shared this with me, my thoughts were that is the truth. Lived through that, unfortunately, in my time in Georgia as well. But your point to this room, in my view, is the resources that you all provide allow us to work without a pencil. But the fact that there is with a pencil with no eraser, there is a pencil with no eraser every time we go out. But the resources you all provide, the leadership you provide for your folks, it's crucial day in, day out. And I don't have to tell you that, but I do think it is something to celebrate that these folks here are providing them. Great tragedy obviously brings it into to a point for us.
Absolutely. You guys have the medallions in front of you. Safety, courage to care. Courage to care. Why does safety take courage to care? Why does it take courage for you to care about the employees? When you think about taking care of your members, right, then we're going to have to take care of our employees who take care of our members. So to care for your employees and to care for the linemen that have a ton of exposure every day. You think about what's going on right now all across the state. There's linemen all across the state right now working with 7,200 volts, gloving it, live, energized. Takes a lot of courage to care. And there's a lot of great intentions in this room. And really my goal is in the next, whatever we get, 40 minutes, whatever it is, my goal is that we can help with those intentions, go make sure that they're looking at the right things, that they're geared to the places that really matter. And so with that, and I just want to say quickly, it's like, I just in my devotions this morning, I was reading 2 Chronicles 27. In my devotions this morning, you had King Jotham. And King Jotham, he was a great king. He was great. He did a lot of great things. But you know what he didn't do? His people kept on doing the wrong things. Though he was a great king, he built up a great kingdom, did a lot of great things. It's like, okay, how do we make sure that we're doing great things, all the things that we've been talking about all day, but then we also make sure that we provide the way and provide the resources and the things that we need to do as leaders to make sure that there's safe work practices in the field. You got anything on that, Corey?
My point to that would be, I think you all do, cooperatives in general. I'm blessed to work with Federated, and I get to see cooperatives all around the country, and I think what I see is folks provide their resources. When I see courage to care, and I do like it, I love that there's a lion on it. Some of us have seen the lion, not the sheep, but the lion on it, because it does take that thought in my mind Dwight, courage to care is that tough love that my dad would give me with a kick in the butt, right? And believe me, I had plenty of those swift kicks, but that's sometimes what we have to do. But it's providing the resources, providing an avenue, but also tough love is saying, hey, we're going to stay focused on what we're doing.
And the other thing with tough love is this, that, and it's the whole thing that Commitment to Zero Phase 2 is geared for, is that sometimes if we want to do all that we can to keep our people safe, then we have to get all the information that we can get. So that information is that's the goal. If you can get the information of the things that are really happening in the field, that's the goal. And that's really what Commitment to Zero Phase 2 is all about. And sometimes that information is difficult to hear. Sometimes that information is difficult to process, but to take the courage to care, it's like, give me all of that information you can give me as a third party. Give it to me, unfiltered. You don't have to apologize for it. Just give it to me. I'll deal with it, even if it makes me look bad. That's the courage to care. It's difficult. It can be, those are the hard things, So anyway, one of the things we're actually going to talk about is why leaders sometimes don't see things the same way that the field workers do. So We'll keep on moving here. So we're going to go through some questions. Corey, why don't you start with this question here?
So what drives a great safety culture?
For me,
what matters a lot?
For me, it's all about people, because the culture is people. And so with people, what you have is you either have an environment of trust or you have an environment of distrust. And so if you have people that can't be trusted, then what you have is you have a closed communication. There's no communication, there's no trust. And so number one, you have to have people that can be trusted. So that trust has to exist in an organization. It flows through people. And so the only way that we're going to ever have great culture in an organization is if there's open communication, because it all flows through that open communication.
I would agree. I think a couple other things that I see on that communication that's not just is open, but it's flowing both ways. But I think you have to have boundaries. If you're going to have a safety program, you got to have boundaries. We have boundaries in everything else in our life. Safety program is no different. We have boundaries. Everybody understands that. That allows that communication to go both directions, right? We've seen that in Commitment to Zero multiple times already, and figuring out how we get beyond those. But I agree with you. That's crucial. Communication, expectation, and boundaries, I think, are critical in those things.
Thanks, Corey. One of the things that matters a lot less maybe than what you think is really safety metrics. And so safety metrics are great when they're low and everything, but they can really kind of throw you off on the high end of an organization. When you're talking about, okay, our safety, maybe you're sitting in a board meeting and you get to safety report and you're looking at the metrics down there, so maybe to you, that's what safety is to you, is those metrics. Don't let those metrics fool you. Don't let them fool you if they're zeros, and don't let them fool you if they're high. And never use them as goals in an organization for your senior staff. Because what we want as an organization, we want pure transparency, and we want lots of reports. We want on that information. When we talk about that open communication, what we're talking about is give us the information that's happening in the field. It means we want a strong near-miss program, right? So we want these tools. So what is your thought on that, Corey, on the metrics? And we're going to talk more about that.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Sometimes we get caught up in looking at metrics. It's kind of a score, right? We're looking to see what's the score. Maybe it's our audit for safety. And what is an audit doing? It's looking back. So it does look back. Doesn't tell us what's going on. If I told you that, and I'm not just telling you, this is a fact, that in the last 7 years, last 10 years, the recordable incident rate for electric cooperatives, linemen, or electric cooperatives in total, is down 50%, Dwight. It's down 50%, meaning, what does that mean? That means for every 100 employees that we have out there, 10 years ago, 7 of them were having an incident that caused them to end up visiting a doctor. Now we're at about 3.5 per 100. But here's the issue. When we look at our serious events, they're not down. We haven't seen that. We've attacked, don't get me wrong, the numbers are crucial in certain areas. It allows us and it points us in a direction to get some of that low fruit. Mm-hmm. But when we get beyond what you're talking about from the communication standpoint, open safety culture, growing that culture, we got to climb a little higher in the tree. The numbers get us to a point, but then we have to climb further in the tree. It's a great tool, but it's not the only tool. Typically, when you look at it, you have to think of it as an auditing tool, not a forecasting, right?
That's good. I love it.
Well, that's a great one right here.
Yeah, so I'll ask you this, Corey. Okay, I'll ask you this one and then the next one, okay? So, Corey, which of the following is safety more about? Is it more about absence of injury or the presence of safety?
So it's the same answer we just talked about. Are you keeping score or are you growing, right? Are you growing the culture or are you keeping score? Absence of injuries, and we celebrate, and there's nothing wrong with celebrating that, but we can't let it lead us or drive us into a place of complacency. And as humans, we don't have a choice. We're going to be complacent, right? We're going to be complacent as we have success. I don't care what book you read on success, all of them say that, so that's what we're trying to fight off. So when you think about absence of injury, it leads to it, right? Yeah. Presence of safety, what does that mean? Presence of safety to me, simply, Dwight, is are we thinking about what you mentioned earlier, near misses? I'll ask y'all, and you all senior leaders, board members, how often do you hear about near misses being turned in? How often do you hear about it? How often do you hear about hazards being addressed? Would it bother you? And that's one place where people don't understand the growth of that program and that culture. If we're growing it, we're going to see those things come. Those hazards are going to be identified, and we're going to address those. Those near misses come. That's the difference. To me, that's growing. And then when we're looking at absence of injury, we're looking back.
And it's not about what we're not doing rather than what we are doing.
Yeah.
So it's about what we are doing rather than what we're like dodging.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
So OSHA, Dwight, just a lot of people get tied up in it. I don't spend much time on OSHA, but this is a point where I think they've made a great point. They are against you having an incentive program, incentivizing no lost time, no incidents. They're against that. Why is that? Because what happens with that? If we incentivize it, we may be bearing it down. They're not against you incentivizing strong, positive behavior. Again, I ask, how often are we incentivizing our folks to go after those hazard reports? Are we incentivizing those near misses? Or do we look just at the result behind us?
So let's take a look at this here, okay? So let's say you have a utility, say a cooperative of 25 field employees, okay? And so it's a small utility, small co-op, 25 linemen. And we're going to take the statistics, okay, from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we're going to say that, okay, the latest ones are 22 fatalities per 100,000 workers, and we know that there's only 120,000 linemen in the United States, okay, in the entire United States. That's including all the helicopter linemen. That's everybody all over, okay, 120,000. So anyway, if you take 100,000, divide that by 25, that equals 5,000. Take that 5,000, divide that by 22. If your safety program was average, if you have 25 field workers, if you were average, you would kill someone every 227 years. This is why we don't gauge by the absence of injury. Because we don't see things right. And so what happens is when something doesn't happen, then it starts giving us a perspective of complacency. And so we think, okay, now something comes up. Maybe something comes up in the budget. It's like, hey, we need some new testers. We're going to go to contact testers. We're going to get rid of these, proximity testers. Well, why do you need that? It's like we're already zero on our DART. We're zero on our recorders. Been for 3 years or 5 years, whatever. Why do we need to get better? It's like, how can we get better? No, that's not what that's telling us. It's saying that, no, we need to be proactive in our program, in our safety program, because we don't understand the things that are maybe necessarily happening in, the big things that are happening in the field. So we're going to keep on moving. So with this, okay, so I'm going to ask Corey, these are the three things that I think about, okay, a lot. I think about, when I think about like an incident that could happen, I think about shortcuts, I think about human error, and I think about lack of training. And that lack of training could be like lack of apprenticeship training, lack of on-the-job training, like lack of experience. Okay, so anyway, so what do you think about that?
It's difficult when you try to say which is the greatest threat. Is it to your point? Is it the training? I think we do a pretty good job in training.
The COLT program is amazing.
I think I've heard you say that before, Dwight.
It is amazing.
The COLT program is amazing.
Thank you for the support of the COLT program.
So it is amazing, and we do talk about it. It is truly amazing what you all have done there. But I think as we look forward, it could be the human error, because we're not seeing. We're seeing a group of people retire out, so we're seeing a lot of that experience. Some of it good, some of it bad, but it's retiring out. And I'll associate this quickly for you. In 2008, and we had the housing bubble in the Southeast, and cooperatives where I worked and surrounding, they had a ton of linemen, Dwight, had been through a great training program, but they weren't doing a lot of the work that needed to be, that linemen do, reconductoring lines, doing all these things. So they lost that ability, that experience in lineman type work, because they had contractors doing all of those tough jobs. So we lost that group of experience. And then when the contractors left in 2008, when the housing bubble happened, now we put people that had a lineman title, which is where we're headed quickly with 4-year linemen, people like that. Even though they're trained, we're losing the experience. I think that's kind of where you're leading here. That's one of our biggest fears right now. One of mine is that we go back into that sense where they don't have that experience. You talk about training. I met with a group at a co-op, just had a contact, and what had happened was they were reconducting a line. They lost all their contractors. They're doing a road build, so it's a pretty complex job. They bought these tensioner and a puller. Were trained how to use it, but they had no experience how to contact. That's where we're headed. I think that human error, obviously near misses, or not near misses, but when we have a shortcut take place, it's damning. It's damning. We don't recognize it until we're caught. Again, it falls into the complacency side. The place that we have to work on is that training and that on-the-job training. How in-depth is that?
So I want to go on the shortcut side, because I think all three of those are an issue at one time or another. And on the shortcut end, I think it's all about, and I want you guys to remember this word, is expectations. It's all about the expectations. You know, we talk a lot about accountability, we talk about discipline, but it's really about expectations. It's like in this organization, the life-saving rules are like, they're just non-negotiable. They just are non-negotiable. It's just what they are. You come to work at our co-op, it's like you're going to be safe to speak, you're going to be safe to hear your voice, and you're even going to be safe to make human errors. You're not safe to shortcut at this co-op. And so when the expectations are clear, that we know that there's going to be gray areas at times, and we're not talking about the gray areas, we're talking about the black and white. You know, and so anyway, but if you make that clear, shortcuts are not going to be an issue. They're just not going to be an issue for you. But I want to go in. I want to go in and I want to look at these things. So the guys, as they're out there working today, okay, there's 3 things that is going through their minds right now, okay, as they're making one decision after another, and their mind is seeking 3 things: is seeking immediacy, is seeking certainty, and is seeking high impact, and that's going to drive the actions. Now, unfortunately, this is kind of how shortcuts work. And so when you think about someone working out in the field and they're making a decision, these are things that their mind is processing at those times. And I want you to think about that. And the one I really want you to think about is high impact. How much of an impact, if I take a shortcut in this situation, am I going to gain? Is it going to be a little, or is it going to be a lot? Have I already got 30 hours of overtime in this week? Is it raining? Is it 35 degrees and pouring rain? Is it really, really cold out? What's the impact? And so what happens is you end up with a total incentive. And this is what drives our actions. Now, what's going to oppose that? There's only one thing that's going to oppose that, and it's going to be the presence of safety on the job. That's it. The presence of safety in the organization and the presence of safety that goes out to that job. So when you think about that, the next time that there's a high-impact moment, if you have a supervisor, have that supervisor get a hold of that crew and say, hey, guys, I know it's tough out there right now. I need you to do the job right, man. I need you to hang in there. Have your operations manager do something where we understand and we recognize a high-impact moment. What is the high-impact moment? Maybe just a phone call. Maybe it's a, hey, how you guys doing? Maybe he goes out and he says, you know what, this is a great time for crew observation in the middle of the night. When's the last time you guys did that? We have a number of good after-hours crew observations in here, and we have a number that are not. When's the last time you had someone go out in the middle of the night just to do a crew observation, just to have a friendly visit? We're not going out to try to find something. We're not going out to try to stir up anything. We're just trying to go out and just to keep things the way that they should be. Just say, hey guys, how's it going? And so we end up with these. So we end up with the presence of safety. So you say, what does that presence of safety look like? Well, what does the accountability look like out on the job? So one of the things to me, like if you're going to have somebody on call, if you're going to put a young man on call, he's fairly new to the co-op. One of the things that he has to be able to do is that he has to have the fortitude within to speak up on the job. It's the one thing that he has to bring to that job site. So do you have, when you put a crew together, and I'm talking now to the senior staffs, when you put a crew together, are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about, okay, how am I pairing guys up? If I decide to put this guy on call, is he going to be a safety warrior out there like I need him to be? You have all these different pieces, and you think about that, and you say, yeah, I just need him to be able to realize something that's a dangerous situation, something he shouldn't do, and then be able to speak up. What kind of accountability? What kind of job briefings? One of the things about Commitment to Zero Phase 1 was job briefings, really honed in on that. They have, and crew, or Corey's crew does an amazing job with the SAFE app. You know, and I know you don't all use it, but that's okay. Some do and some don't. Some may be better without it, and probably most better that do use it. So, but anyway, with that, it's like, what kind of job briefings are going on? What kind of connection? What kind of connection? Are they actually talking? Are they actually, in those discussions, are they talking about important things? Or are they just like, hey, yeah, you know, put your gloves on. Put your gloves on, Corey.
It's tough, Dwight. We take people that are competitors, and the reason I brought up the tough love early, that are competitors, and we give them a tough job, and then we want them to have soft skills to speak up, and it's not really soft skills to get to that point. It's tough, but you're right. You have to build that, but it has to build from the ground up, and then from the top down as well. You hit on it from an expectation standpoint. You know, I think about it this way. I think again about my dad, and I said quit picking on him. But let's take your scenario with a seatbelt. Everybody wear their seatbelt in here? How come? When did you start? My dad, he started when the Georgia State Patrol pulled him over and wrote him a ticket for it. He said, I thought I didn't have to wear that seatbelt because the Speaker of the House drove a pickup and he excluded it from the law initially. My dad said, I thought I didn't have to wear that seatbelt. He said, no, sir, you do. Wrote him a ticket. He was not happy, obviously. Complained about it. And he wore it from time to time. He was going in town and he thought he might see somebody, but he changed. The expectation changed. You know what changed him? My son. So when my son came along, now he's buckling him in, and he doesn't like being buckled either. Now he has to mirror. He has to show that what he wants this kid to do behind. Our folks are no different. We have to be mirroring from the top level of leadership straight down through. This is what's important. You know, and it's tough. It's tough because what is important? What was our organizations built for? To electrify rural America and to keep that on. So it's tough because that sets up here, but we have to move safety up there with it. My dad would have never went in that direction had his grandkids not pressed. And obviously he changed when he had grandkids anyway. I've never received the things they got, but that's okay. That's one of those things that happens. right? It's what it's supposed to happen. It just puts more work on us. But think about that influence as a senior leader. What changed there for him, and how do we make that change for these people? Because they want to give you and do what you want. We just have to make sure it's clearly understood with the expectation you mentioned.
That's great. So question number 4. You asked me this one, Corey, okay?
Why do you get the easy ones?
Because I'm the one with the clicker, man.
So why do leaders typically believe their safety programs are stronger than what they really are?
What do you mean by that?
Why do I feel I'm at co-op ABC and I feel like I've got a really strong safety program? But I don't know. And I'll give you an example of it. When we began the Commitment to Zero pilots, we asked statewide around the country, say, hey, tell us who might be part of this, right? We had a lot of folks that they selected. Do you think they selected their best, or their what they felt like might be the ones that didn't have such a great culture? They selected their best. And when Bud and I went to these places, Dwight, when we would leave in a couple of instances, the statewide person who had a strong program was scared to death because they didn't see. So they couldn't see, the management level couldn't see, and I think it's just simply because we look at results, and that communication you talked about early, it's not that open right there. What's your thought? I mean, I asked.
Well, let's see what. I'm going to show you this graph here, okay? So, kind of bear with me here, you guys. I need you to study this graph a little bit, okay? So we have safety there on the left. We have time on the bottom there. And we're really looking at 2 things here, okay? Number 1, we're looking at your safety policy, and number 2, we're looking at the hazards that are out in the field, okay? So basically, you know, so the margin for error is driven by the degree of hazards that they're encountering, and then the type of work practices that they're using, okay? So that's what we're looking at. We want to know how much margin for error, because we know that people make mistakes, right? I mean, your people are going to make mistakes. There's no doubt about it. They've made many today. We've all made human errors today. So they're going to make mistakes. So it's like, how do we think sometimes as maybe senior leaders, as maybe board members, how do we think that we have more margin for error than what we really do? Here's how it happens. Is number 1, if you look on the bottom there, you have your perceived threats to safety. And so what happens if you don't have good communication in an organization, what happens is you don't understand that things are pretty tough. Things are pretty hazardous out there. And it's like, man, you know, I mean, yeah, it is a no eraser type of industry. So it's like, okay, so maybe we don't hear about things that happen, that type of thing. And so in actuality, it's like the threats to safety are very real, and it's like, yeah, there's not a ton of room for error. And then on the high side, what you have is you have your safety policy. And it's like, okay, well, no, our safety policy is good. It's, you know, our stated expectations are good and everything. And then you have drift. So you have linemen that are drifting. And so what do you mean by drift? You mean in other words, their safe work practices are not lining up with your safety policy. And believe it or not, sometimes there might be leaders, and maybe some of your leaders that might be okay with that at times. Are you okay with that? It's like, no, we're not okay with it. Why? Because what ends up happening is this is what we think, there on the left, we think we have this much margin for error. The fact of the matter is we're dealing with this much margin for error, and all we have to have is one thing happen out in the field. It's like, it's all set up. It's set up. We got the hazard set up. All we need is something to go sideways on the job, and all of a sudden we have an accident. It's like, how did that happen? How in the world did that happen? And so you look at that, and one of the things is that we talked about the courage to care. And so one of the things that you'll find in a weak culture is that a weak culture is afraid to uncover the truth. And it's like, we want that information, right? We want the information. We want to be able to uncover the truth so we know what the truth is, okay? So anyway, and then I want to talk about drift. Drift, as your linemen are so good, your linemen are so good at adapting, doing all these different things, well, the drift is a part of that. Your drift is a quality of adaptive human behavior. So in other words, your best linemen, they're going to be the ones most prone to drift. That's crazy, isn't it? Does that make them bad? That was me, okay? I don't know, Corey probably too.
Wait, I mean.
You're looking at 2 linemen up here, guys.
Okay? Can I talk about this for a second, Dwight?
Yeah.
What you were looking at, from my perspective, is simply this. It's the safety factor that's built in. Those life-saving rules that we talk about, they're non-negotiables to me when we talk about them. They're the safety factor we build into. I believe what your folks do is not dangerous. I don't believe it was dangerous when I was doing those things, when I'm talking about working on energized lines, getting re-energizing lines, working on outage restorations. It is unforgiving. We have a safety factor built in there. You give every one of your linemen a rope, and it's got a 5-to-1 safety factor built into it. Why is that? Because they're going to overstretch it, right? They're going to push it, so they build this into it. They got a working load limit, and that working load limit goes even beyond that. That's our life-saving rules. We can go to here, then we can go there, but just as your graph pointed, we continually push that edge because we don't have that experience of something happening. Right? We don't have that experience, so we want to push the edge a little bit. Drift is there, and we allow drift because, to your point, what was the impact of the drift? The impact of the drift is I'm a little more comfortable. Mm-hmm. I can get the lights on a little bit quicker. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What does 15 minutes mean in somebody's life?
Can I talk about 15 minutes? I got Tom Music sitting right back there, and one of his linemen got up in one of my meetings. And he said, I want to tell you a story. He says, at our co-op, they used to always get on us about outage times and stuff. He said, and that man there came to work for our organization. And he said, hey guys, when you get out to the outage, the outage is already there. That was established. That was the system.
Correct.
And
we already have a failure.
Yeah, and Tom said, okay, so you get to be the hero, put it on. And I'm sure I'm not telling this exact, Tom. I'm just telling it as he told it to me. And he said, now, when you get out there, you get to make a choice, whether you're going to do the job right or you're going to do it wrong. He says you can shortcut it, take 15 minutes and shortcut, and that's virtually going to mean nothing in our outage times if you shortcut 15 minutes off of that. Or you can do the job right and get back home every time. So the expectation moving forward would be that we're just going to go out and do the job right every time. We're going to get back home every night.
Correct.
That was amazing. He said, the next time I went out on an outage, he said, my whole paradigm shifted. He said, I went out on the outage. He said, I always had so much pressure on me before. He said, when I went out on that outage, he said, I'll never forget how my paradigm just shifted. He said, the pressure was off of me. And he said, and then I knew that I had permission to do what I needed to do on that job without feeling pressured. He said it was amazing. And now he's a supervisor in Hillsborough, and so now his guys work under that. And all your guys, right, Tom?
Similar to what I heard earlier with the communication folks. One of the gentlemen up here said, I could communicate what I heard every so often, and I was good at what I was doing. But once I become part of that whole piece, like you mentioned, Tom, he sat down and said, this is what we want. They had a discussion about, his expectation was set. Now we have a gentleman involved, as he was talking about from the communications aspect, involved in building the message, not just presenting the message. Things became better for him. No different for your line workers. No different for them. What have they heard for years? I'm betting if I ask who gets the lights on quicker, I'm going to get one answer. Right? I see it in national magazines. It's things that we have done for years and years. Folks ask constantly. I'll get a question. We want to be able to tell our members how long it's going to be. Tell them about how difficult the job is and how your people are having to stay safe and follow these safety rules. We are hard at work to get your power back on. But we're going to do it in a safe manner. That's what some of the messaging we're seeing because people are asking for it, and it's interesting to see what they get back. I need to paper whatever they're communicating. I don't do the social media, but I've had things shared with me that when they post a message on their social media like that, what happens at that point is they begin to get messages back, praying for your folks. You tell them to stay safe. We're fine. We're always going to have the one that's going to be kicking doors. You know what? I've dealt with them. Your guys will know how to deal with the guy that's out there kicking doors. I promise. They can handle that member that's that way sometimes. But those are the things to think about, Dwight.
I want this coin, okay? Safety, courage to care. Here's what we want you to do with it, okay? We're not done yet, but I just don't want to forget about this. So you can do one of two things with it. You can give it to someone that has demonstrated in your world, okay, that you have seen that they have demonstrated the courage to care. You can give it to them. And we can thank NRACA for this idea. We actually kind of stole the idea from them. I gave the one I got from them, I gave it to Doug. I gave it to Doug Miller, my boss. And I thanked him for caring so much about safety. And so, because it has made a huge difference. It's made a huge difference for what our department can do and just in all across the state. And so anyway, so you can give it to someone or you can keep it. You can keep it, put it in your pocket every day. And when you feel that, think about the courage that it takes to care, the resources that it takes, the hard work it is to have a good safety program. And it's like, yeah, I got courage, you know. It's like, yeah, okay, I know. It takes courage. It takes hard work. It's like, I care about my people, and I want to make sure that I remember that, and that if there's something that comes up, I need to remember that type of thing. And so either one, it's yours. And if you want to give yours away and you want another one, then you come see me, okay? We have more. And if you didn't get one, make sure that you, Harrison's actually standing up right there. Make sure you go see Harrison. Harrison, mine are sitting back there. Let's go see Harrison in the back there.
He was leaving, Dwight. He had heard enough of this, so he was.
Daggone, are you leaving, Harrison? Oh,
so can I tag on that for just a second before you?
Yeah, please.
You go on, and this is an appreciation from all cooperatives to some leadership you had here many years ago, around 2007, I believe. Doug, you might help me out there. You all, in a strategic planning of the statewide, decided you need to take a deeper dive into safety. Dwight asked a question, or I asked Dwight the question a while ago about why management feels like their safety program is better than it is. You all in a strategic planning group, statewide board, decided that we need to dive deeper because we can see these things happening. You gave us an idea. We put together a safety strategy lab. We've done it in 26 states now, where we went in and asked the questions to the linemen, to the safety people, the operations supervisors, and the CEO. And what it did was it told us where those gaps were and gave us a roadmap to try to create some leading practices out of that. That come from here in the state. I am so thankful for it. People don't realize. I tell them all the time, from my perspective, in safety in our cooperative family, that was at ground level, and we have grown from there based on those things that came out of that and based on how that was done. So thank you for that. We have really federated. We've done it in 26 states now. I think we're getting ready to do the third version here, which is a little different, focus more on what we're doing. But that's a testament to the leadership that you all share. So I just wanted to say thanks for that.
Appreciate it. So I do want to just stress, these are the three things. These are the pieces: active engaging your people. You know, what does it look like to engage your people, to have that open communication? Because it's like, how are we going to understand what's actually going out in the field? How do we get, you know, when it's like when they begin drifting, how do we keep that communication open where they say, hey, they go in the next morning and say, hey, I gotta let you know what happened out on the job last night. You know, to have that kind of safe, open communication, that's amazing. And it takes leadership attention. It's like, you can't, it's like, no, this guy over here, he does safety. It's like, no, these are the safety leaders in the state. The ones in this room right here. It's like, we have to own that safety program. This is our safety program. So anyway, with that, we're going to skip this part about the metrics and going to say the one thing, you know, I just blind spots before I want to go into commitment to zero just a minute. But these blind spots, you know, it's like when you think about metrics, it's like it doesn't tell us anything about blind spots. Okay, so like I'm getting ready this morning, I'm going, wow, you know, I got this amazing head of hair. Unfortunately, like Corey does not. You know,
it's clear.
So anyway, and it's like I don't know, you know what.
Some people can't really. I mean, they don't decipher what they're seeing in the mirror. Yeah. It's an altered thing. You know, did you put that in chat? People, yeah. I don't know, but
yeah.
So blind spots are there. You're right.
So we have blind spots. I can't see my bald spot unless I have another form of looking at myself. So it's just not. You can't see it. And so sometimes we need different ways of finding our blind spots, and that's what commitment to zero is meant to do. Okay. So anyway, so I want to just kind of put it on that slide, Corey. I
Yeah.
want you to go ahead and just take that a little bit.
Yeah, so you touched on it perfectly. The slide asks, why do we have blind spots and why do we not see them? It's because of that open communication aspect of it. I think the success of this, similar to what I mentioned earlier with the gentleman in communications, where he's able to now be part of building the communication that's coming out, not just taking it and communicating it. Our vision was, let's put something together so we can ask the people on the ground, what are you really doing? You know, the first couple of times, first probably 5 or 6, I just kept pushing until we stopped it. We asked not only the people on the ground, but we asked the supervisor. So we got tainted data constantly because the supervisor always believes they're following the rules. It is what the rule is, right? And we got questions in there to figure that out. So we quit asking those folks. Now we get serious answers. So now we can address it with serious solutions. But the important part of this, the most important part to me, Dwight, from Commitment to Zero, is you're bringing the people that have the greatest amount of impact and influence on your safety program into the room and asking them to be a part of the solution. You're not just giving them the solution. You want those crew leaders who are the impactful influencers out there. Some of them may not look like influencers that you see on TV, but they are influencers out there day to day. And it's not just safety, it's on everything that's going on. Safety will drive positive culture in general, but they're the influencers on that. Having them in the room, asking them what they think about it, and letting them discuss it. You mentioned that the greatest thing that you had a Commitment to Zero recently where you didn't have to talk. I realized that was difficult, right? It was difficult for you to step back, right? That's how we are. It's difficult for us to step back.
I didn't know if that was a gouge or not.
But I think they got it. Maybe. The thing is that's the key. Get out of the way and let these people communicate, right?
Absolutely.
Just
It is.
bringing it up and
Absolutely.
leading these folks to talk about it internally. They're smart people. They're resourceful. They're smart. They're hardworking. We got to give them that bit of show them the courage to give them that opportunity.
Yeah. So I see 245 up there. So Doug, do you want to do some questions? Is that what do you want to do? Open it up for one question? It's probably enough time for one question. Either that or I just shut us off early.
Hey, if not,
Oh, we got one here.
Hi, thanks. I don't have a question. I got a comment because I've been over 30 years in the world of safety, so I understand greatly what you guys are trying to introduce. There's so many things you can look at when it comes to safety, but I'm very glad that you appreciate you bringing it up today because we got some CEOs and executives in the room, and basically they just got to keep hearing this because the problem lies, there's so many gaps, there's so many hurdles, the blind spots that you indicated. One of the things, the courage to care I like, but there's also courage to change, courage to commit. But the bottom line is, when you say courage to care, why don't you just change it to I care? I care what? I care about you, I care about your family, I care about your coworkers. So when you talk about safety, the problem with safety is this: there's no one way to achieve it. The negative of safety is there's no one way to achieve it. You've got so many variables, so many indicators, so many experiences that could impact it. But we got to stay to the course. We got to stay active, we got to stay involved, we got to stay looking at the others in order for them to go home at the end of their scheduled shifts every time. But I appreciate that. I'm glad you came. Appreciate the comments. Other things we can do, of course, is just inspect what you expect. You talked about expectations. Well, if you want to have great expectations, then you need to take the time to inspect it. And it kind of fits a little bit this morning. You know, it's when you get time, then I'll go check them. No, let's do it now. Let's make a commitment to the safety of your group, the safety of our co-ops, the safety of those linemen. Let's do it now, not tomorrow.
Thank you. That's a great point.
Appreciate
and a great point to the program is it's individualized. The other part of the Commitment to Zero is individualized locally because you're right. The strength of safety is also our weakness with it. We have to address it, and it has to be localized. So,
Thank you all so much. We really
yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity.